Hey guys, it's Andrea. Welcome to my Essential Talk. So today I'm going to be talking about the artificial womb. And if you're asking yourself, does that even exist? And if it does exist, what the heck is it? The answer is yes, it exists, and it is exactly what it sounds like. There's been a lot of talk in recent years about artificial wombs, and basically they're asking the question, can we create an environment for premature babies to continue to develop normally as they would in a uterus, and eliminate a lot of the health problems that they're going to face later on in their lives just simply because they were born prematurely? So, a guy named Alan Flake and his team decided to take this question on, and they performed an experiment. And this central talk is about his experiment, what went right, what went wrong, and what they gathered from that. And this is a very recent experiment. It just took place. They published the journal about it in April. So, I couldn't figure out Screencast-O-Matic because I'm not very technology savvy, but I did it my own way. So, here comes my presentation. So this is my presentation on the artificial womb. So to start off, I have a few quick statistics. The first one is that 15 million babies are born prematurely every year, and this number is definitely on the rise. Each year, that number is climbing. The second statistic is that premature birth is the leading cause of death for children under the age of 5. When I say premature, I mean a baby that was born before 37 weeks. And more than 60% of preterm births occur in Africa and South Asia. So, new studies. I'll begin with an introduction on this study. So, in April of 2017, a study was published stating that 8 fetal lambs were effectively able to develop in an artificial womb for around a month. The lambs, at the conclusion of the experiment, had normal growth, brain maturation, and lung maturation. The end goal for the development of this artificial womb is that one day it will be used to save premature babies. The scientists hope to begin testing the device on premature babies in the next 3 to 5 years. That's their ballpark goal, but obviously they're going to have to make sure it's safe before they move on to babies. Okay, so the artificial womb itself. The idea of the artificial womb has been discussed quite a bit in recent years, but there were always major questions that many people weren't able to answer. The artificial womb, which Alan Flake and his team decided to call the biobag, was developed, and it was an extremely difficult feat for that team. They began with a transparent plastic bag that functioned as a makeshift uterus, protecting the lamb. An electrolyte solution was produced to fill the bag and act as a synthetic amniotic fluid. This fluid kept the lungs filled with fluid, eliminated waste, and protected the lambs from infection. Blake's team soon faced the strenuous task of recreating the circulatory system, which is essentially the connection between the mother and the fetus. An external pump used for blood flow posed the risk of damaging the lamb's heart, so they had to develop a pumpless system. The blood vessels in the umbilical cord were hooked up to an oxygenator, which allowed for steady blood circulation without damage to the heart. So you can see by that diagram some of the things are labeled, and that is how the lamb, or all 8 of the lambs, were positioned in the biobags, and that is how they remained for approximately 4 weeks. It took Alan Flake and his team quite a while to develop the biobag because there were just a lot of obstacles, especially involved with the circulatory system, that were hard for them to overcome. Designing it and making sure that it didn't harm the lambs in the process. So the results, here you can see pictured one of the actual lambs that was used in the experiment. Obviously in the leftmost picture, it was at the beginning of the month, and 4 weeks later the next picture was taken. You can see that obviously the lamb developed more fleece and just grew, and it matches up with the maturation that fetal lambs would have gone through in a mother. So, after 4 weeks, the team of scientists transferred the lambs for the artificial wombs to ventilators like the ones that are used in the ICU for premature babies. When compared to lambs delivered via C-section at the same age as the lambs that were placed in the biobags, the health on the ventilator was right on track. So 7 of the lambs were euthanized to be examined by Flake's team. The eighth lamb was already developed enough to breathe on its own, so they decided to continue studying it and not euthanize it. Um, they began to study the organ systems, which the organ systems are the most susceptible to damage in premature infants, so that was what they mainly wanted to look at. But the lambs showed no signs of damage or hindered development, and they matched up with lambs that would have grown in a mother. So everything was, looking good so far. It still is looking good. Especially, it was quite a feat for them to do that because there's been many attempts, but nothing has been this successful so far. So, concerns. There's a lot of ethical concerns involved in this experiment. Just because the biggest issue surrounding this experiment is the most obvious as well, and I laid it out in pretty simple pictures. Lambs are not humans. And there's a significant difference, especially in the pace of brain development between lambs and humans. So, for precaution, scientists are studying the lambs that survived once taken off the ventilator, and they're going to see if there's any long term health effects that weren't noticeable at first, especially as the lambs continue to mature and uh, potentially reproduce to see if anything happens to go wrong. At this point, the lambs are still healthy. It's pretty reasonable for the scientists to envision the artificial womb being used for premature babies in the future, but it definitely poses the hope that the continuation of development in an artificial environment could reduce lifelong conditions that are brought on simply by being born too early. However, if biobags do succeed in aiding preterm children, the cost and distribution are two major factors. Most of the regions with the highest rates of preterm births don't have access to the high level health care that would be required, so it would definitely be a challenge to come up with the funding and the resources for biobags to become an integral part of the healthcare systems. But don't let me get too ahead of myself. First, we have to figure out if these artificial wombs are possible for the development of human babies. And I guess we'll find out in the near future. Okay, so I hope you guys learned as much as I did, and I hope you have as many questions as I do. I think that the artificial womb is a really great thing to be talking about. It is a really great development what these scientists have done because many people, have stories of people that they know that have been born prematurely. My dance teacher, about 3 weeks ago, just had a baby prematurely, and they're already going to have to talk about potential health risks that this baby is going to have and things that she's going to experience because she was born too early. I think it's just a really great topic to be exploring, and I'm glad that I got to talk about it with you guys. Okay, see ya!